All right. Hi, Anna. Welcome to the show.
Hi.
I'm so excited to have you here. We're going to talk to my guests about what you're doing, and I think it's a really cool idea. But also, you are the only other, and we talked about this a little bit before we got on the call, the only other Anna I know, like my daughter Anna. So, so that's extra special for me. But how about you introduce yourself to the guests and let us know what you're really passionate about?
My name is Anna Teider. I am originally from Croatia. I live in Austria now after 15 years almost in the United States. Um, I am a journalist, book author. Last year, I became a professor, which I'm very excited about. I
Mm.
teach strategic communications at a university here in Vienna.
Mhm.
And 4 years ago, I started a podcast called Thank You, Mama, in which I interview women around the world about the most important lessons they learned from their mothers.
Mm.
And it's been growing and growing steadily and beautifully. It won a few awards. And now I have 145 interviews with women from over 70, 80 even countries, talking about their mothers' lives and the lessons they learned from them and what do they wish their mothers had taught them. So I'm sitting on a real treasure chest of wisdom and lessons in women's lives and motherhood and parenting from literally all over the world. I heard about mothers from Nepal, farmers, from Nepal to women in Africa, Sri Lanka, China, Japan, you name it. I
Wow.
have it. We learn from them. So that's a very beautiful project. This is really what I'm really passionate about for the past 4 years. It's ready to become a book. I just have to sit down and write it. It's all there. And I have to tell you, I was dreaming of becoming a professor one day, and that happened. And I'm even more passionate about that, about teaching, than I thought I would be. I am very, very excited about it.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, those two things they're both teaching, right? I mean, it's just
Yes.
different ways of teaching. So
Yeah.
clearly
Yeah.
teaching is part of your, soul's purpose here on this planet. But where did the inspiration from the book come from? How did you decide that you wanted to do this?
The podcast.
The podcast, I'm sorry, yes.
Yeah. Well, I had an amazing mom who was amazing in many different ways. She people tell me it's amazing to have a mom who's your own idol, and my mom was my idol.
Yeah.
She had two parallel careers in which she was equally successful. My mom was discovered as an actress accidentally at the age of 17 and immediately shot into the stratosphere of a movie star. She became literally a movie star. And parallel to her film career, she finished the Academy of Arts and became an equally awarded, admired, celebrated artist.
Mhm.
And on top of all of that, she was an amazing human being. She was just a mensch, she was this big, big, joyful heart. Um, we had a very close relationship. We were best friends and soul sisters. We were really very close. She only had me. And when I lost her in 2016, I had a a fear that if I forget what she told me, I will forget her and lose her in a
Mhm.
way. So I
Mhm.
started writing down what she told me, and that turned into what she taught me and what she showed me. And this
Mhm.
started turning into a book of her life through her lessons. And
Mhm.
telling my friends about this, I realized how important and obvious and out here this topic is of learning from our mothers, but we never really think about it or never verbalize it.
Mhm.
Maybe once it's too late and they're already gone. So I decided I'm going to start a podcast interviewing women and also my mom's big lesson always was to always keep a helicopter view and always include more than exclude.
Mhm.
And this is why it was very important for me to cover the world and to interview women from different generations and religions and cultures and backgrounds and lifestyles and everything.
Yeah.
Only in that way, I think that really wins on this big value. It's
Yeah.
yeah. So that's how the
Yeah.
podcast happened.
Wow, that is, I love that idea. I mean, I just think that is so fantastic. And so, so many times women and especially mothers, like in their role as mothers, are, I don't want to say taken for granted, but kind of in a way they are. I mean, we just expect them to be there. We expect them to do what they do, and they don't receive a whole lot of recognition often
Mhm,
for
mhm.
what our mothers teach us and the values that they instill in us. And so this is really a way of highlighting that and bringing
Yeah.
it to the surface and allowing those lessons and values and all of that hard work to take center stage for a little bit.
Hmm. But
And
also becoming aware of how we should be conscious about as parents about what we are passing on, what
yeah,
we are modeling, because I've
yeah.
learned through all these interviews that it's one thing that you say to your children, do this and that, and the other thing is what
Mhm.
we model to them. um
Yeah,
what we model to them has way more influence, and I became aware of that only through all these interviews and hearing these women speak. So it's very, very important not only to become conscious and think about what we learned, but also what we want to pass on and what we do not want to pass on.
yeah, absolutely. When I was growing up, my parents, it was kind of a joke in our house, but they would do something and then they would tell us to do the opposite thing. And they would say,
Yeah,
do as I say, not as I do. That was their expression,
yeah,
do as
yeah,
I
yeah,
say,
yeah,
not as I
yeah,
do.
yeah, but that does
And
not work.
it doesn't work now. And we laugh about it now, but yes,
Yeah.
it absolutely doesn't work. And I think our kids are, they're just absorbing from us all the
Mm,
time. And
mm,
so much of the time that absorption happens not through what we're saying, but through what they're
mm.
witnessing us do and through the energetic we kind of just bring to our whole
Yeah,
lives. So
yeah.
are there certain common themes that you've noticed that have shown up over time despite differences in cultures and maybe ages as well?
That is for me the most beautiful thing I've learned from this project is that on the surface we might be very different and live in different cultures and different countries, different times.
Mhm.
But what I've learned is that there is a certain uniformity, there is a certain um, storyline to women's lives and thus lessons we teach or learn that is universal. And this for me was an amazing aha moment, and it made me understand how deeply connected we women are throughout the ages and generations, but also spatially. A woman in Africa, being hunted as a witch from her family goes through kind of, on the outside, the challenge is different, but then these lessons we have to learn and the big themes end up being the same, and that for me was a huge, huge, huge um, learning and lesson, and I felt very connected. I feel very connected to women right now, and it makes me a little sad that we're not more aware of this. I think if we were aware of this, we would feel empowered, more empowered, just by
Yeah.
the fact that there's this sisterhood out there. But
Yeah.
this is my one big lesson. But so that was the introduction to, yes, there are universal lessons, and that was fantastic to learn that mothers teach the daughters no matter where they are and no matter what
Mhm.
the circumstances are. One of the most important things women mention as the most important, and this is maybe not directly a lesson, but they very often mention this as a lesson, is my mom was my biggest cheerleader. My mom gave me courage. My mom supported me in my adventures and my dreams.
Mm-hmm.
A mom who is a source of this self-confidence and power and courage. Women highly appreciate this.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a way of instilling confidence in our daughters, this lesson on self-confidence and knowing that, as one guest said, only you stand in your own way. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's for me maybe the most important thing, most important lesson that keeps repeating.
Yeah.
Resilience. It's beautiful hearing all these women talk about their mothers and saying, I learned resilience from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And then you hear those life stories and you realize how strong, resilient, powerful, amazing we women are. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that throughout all these thousands of years, we've been told and treated differently. But when you hear these stories, you understand how fantastic we are. So that's another one. Independence. And most often this comes as financial independence. Be it a farmer from Kenya or a psychotherapist from Switzerland tries to teach her daughter how important it is to have your own source of income,
Mm-hmm.
your profession, your whatever it is you need to be independent. This possibility to, I don't want to sound negative, but to get out of a situation if it doesn't work, or
Mm-hmm.
or let's put it in a positive way, to make your situation a choice, to
Mm-hmm.
make your marriage a choice and your situation a choice.
Yeah.
Um, Hard work very often comes, but I think it goes hand in hand with resilience. Um, One of very interesting lessons that I just started actually critically investigating is kindness and loving and caring of others. Women
Mm-hmm.
very often say, my mom took care of everybody. She was so loving and took care of all of us and was always there for us. And I just recently started discovering the dark side of that. In the
Yeah.
beginning, I thought, oh, we women are so caring and loving, and that's so
Right.
amazing. But it took me these 4 years. I just discovered through a book called The Mother-Daughter Puzzle by Roski Heseldine, who is a therapist and coach and works with mother-daughter relationships. And she talks in her book, and I
Mm-hmm.
invited her, she was a guest on my podcast as well. She talks about this service of female culture, and how we passed it on generation to generation.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly my eyes opened and I realized that all this loving and caring and taking care of everybody else, as lovely as it sounds, can also be a double-edged sword. And now when I hear this lesson being mentioned, and again, this is one of the top lessons that most often
Mm-hmm.
is mentioned, I always dig deeper into, did mom take care of herself and how did she take care of herself?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and often when women also talk about their moms burning out or getting sick and things like that as a result of that. One of my favorite lessons of all times is something I've learned from my mom as well, because in her early 60s, she just decided to reinvent herself yet again. And she decided enough of being in front of the camera, she's going to become a director. And she produced and directed her own little art film, which sounded in the beginning like a hobby, but ended up taking her to international film festivals once again, and she started winning awards with this. It was a beautiful critical analysis through snippets of her movies and her real life, analyzing our position in the society. Again,
Yeah.
my amazing mom, among all the other things, was a big feminist and always
Yeah.
very vocal about women and our role in the society. So women very often tell me about this second act, about the joy of second act, about these
Mm-hmm.
moms who start a business at 50, start something completely new, maybe even in their 60s.
Yeah.
Recover from, I don't know, being widowed or divorced or something. And I hear so often about this second stage in life being the most joyful and fulfilling and amazing. And so often I hear my mom's never been happier than now. And that I think this is so important and so beautiful as a universal lesson that we can learn,
Yeah.
you know, that the best is yet to come.
Yeah. I love
So
that.
I think these are the top lessons women mention as something they learn from their moms. But then I always ask my guests, what do you wish your mom had taught you? Is there something important that you had to learn yourself? Which turned out to be maybe as important or maybe even more important than lessons we learn.
Mhm.
Because this clearly tells us on how we should be parenting, especially our daughters. And now, the top thing that women mention here is sex and our bodies, female bodies. They really are sad and disappointed if their mothers haven't spoken to them about our bodies and sex.
Mhm.
Because as one of my guests said, and I love this quote, is I wish I didn't have to go through so much trial and error.
Mm.
And when you're a mom of a daughter, you realize, oof, I do not want my daughter to learn through trial and error in this part of her life.
Yes.
Um, and women say this is so interesting for me because my mom always talked to me about my body and about sex. And I'm very grateful to her about this. This was just such a matter of factly conversation of like, yeah, this is what happens, you know?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so for me, it was interesting to learn from women how frustrating it is when this doesn't happen. And women say, if I understand that my mom was maybe not raised that way, or maybe her religion doesn't allow her, or maybe she just doesn't feel comfortable talking about it. I wish she told me whom to ask or where to go. Or
Mm.
at least, women even say, at least if she put a pamphlet in my hand or, gave me a
Right.
book or something. So
Yeah.
this is very important to women.
Yeah.
The second thing they wish they learned is finances, money, investing,
Mhm.
checkbooks. This is interesting that women are starved for that information, especially
Mhm.
their mothers. Um, Another thing that's very interesting and often comes is I wish it taught me self-confidence. And it's interesting in two ways. First, women who say this often had very self-confident mothers and say my mom was so self-confident, but she didn't.
Mhm.
So I wonder if you can teach self-confidence, if this is something that's teachable. But then it goes hand in hand with the first lesson I mentioned that women are grateful for, which is the mother being the source of confidence, of being a
Mhm.
cheerleader. And so that's interesting. And then finally, but extremely important, and we are all turning back and closing for full circle again, self-care.
Mm.
Women very often say, I
Mhm.
wish my mother modeled to me what it means to take care of yourself in
Yeah.
whatever shape and form. I had a very interesting conversation with a lady who said, I think I often wonder what my mom would be like if she went back to work. She really thinks that her mom would have been a much happier, fulfilled, satisfied person had she not chosen to stay at home and take care of everybody. Um, so self-care can mean anything. Most often it means taking a break.
Mhm.
Women say, I wish my mom modeled to me that it's okay to sometimes just take a break or whatever it is, have
Yeah.
a cup of tea, or go for yoga, take a stroll, go to work, whatever,
Mhm.
yeah, whatever we need, whatever nurtures us to do that.
Yeah.
So yes, many
So
lessons.
there are many lessons, and you're right in noticing that some of them are be like opposites of each other, like
Yes.
really valuing this kindness and how she took care of everyone, but wishing she would have modeled and taught self-care. That's, that's
Yeah.
very interesting.
Which,
And
which proves to us that everything is a question of balance,
right.
everything
Yes.
needs to be in balance.
Yes. And this, the teaching about your body and sex, like that is still, I think to this day, at least in the United States, I can't speak outside of that, something that parents still feel very uncomfortable talking to their kids about.
Mm,
But then on the flip side of that, so I do have a daughter and she's 15, so she's that age, and no one told me anything about sex growing up. And so
yeah.
if you had
Yeah.
interviewed me, I would have said that was absolutely one of the things I wish my mom would have talked to me about. And so I made a very conscious decision from the time she was very, very young to make this very matter of fact, make it something we just talked about all the time. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But still, she's like, no, I don't want to hear it. That's disgusting. That's gross. Despite my efforts of trying to make it be like, this is just a fact of life. Like, we're just going to talk about this like we talk about anything else. She has still resisted me
But
on
that
that.
does not matter because now she knows one day when she has a question or she's
Yeah.
confused,
Yes.
she knows you're open to talking about it. So
Yes.
even if she shuts down right now, that's okay. Continue.
Right.
Just
Right.
she needs to know you're here for this topic as well.
Yes. Yes.
So
I love that.
yeah.
Yeah. I keep hoping that. I also am a big, meditator and breath work and yoga, and I do all of those things. And I try to keep inviting her into that world too. And she's also giving me a very hard pass there, but I always say the same thing that you said about the sex topic. I keep saying like, well, you never know. One day she
Yeah.
might just,
Yeah.
turn
One day.
around and decide that
Mm.
maybe I will give this thing a shot that mom,
Mm.
suggested. Um, of all the women that you interviewed, where was it a mix, or like were their mothers deceased? Were they living? Was it a mix?
A mix.
A mix. Okay.
Yeah, it
Did
was
you
a mix.
notice any differences between the women whose mothers had passed versus those that hadn't? Like, does that passing create some sort of different kind of reflection?
Yes, yes, it does. And I really, really want to wave a flag and say what I've learned from them is what I've learned by myself. I had a very close relationship to my mom, and we talked about so many things. And she was very open about many things and told me, about her life and experiences in childhood and everything. And I always thought I know everything. But once she was away, now I'm like, oh, I wish I asked this and that. Um, it talk to your mom. It's interesting what my guests whose moms pass away will tell you this thing. They will say they wish they asked more and didn't take things and information for granted and try to understand their moms better and where they come from and what their experiences are. So that's the yeah,
Biggest takeaway.
biggest
Yeah.
takeaway.
Yeah. And I can see that because sometimes when our moms are still living, there's a little bit of friction. It's a different
Yeah,
generation,
and they're
things,
here and you take it for granted and it's okay. But
yeah.
once they're gone, it's like, oh, I actually created a list of questions to interview your mom, which my friends are huge fans of. If any of your listeners would like one, please contact me. You will find
Okay.
my contacts through my website or through the podcast, and I'm on social media. I still haven't made this available on my website. I'm such a bad marketing person. It should be one of these
Yes.
things that pops up as like,
Yes.
if you like this,
Right.
give me your email address. I still haven't done this, but this, my friends, really, they love this list of questions, and this is something I really recommend to do this interview with your
Yeah.
mom, and things will open up, and
Yeah, I love that. If
miracles can
you
happen.
want to provide that or some form of that, I can put it in the show notes so people can access it, even if you have like a
Yeah.
landing page that would
I
go
have
directly
my
to
own
that.
website. Yeah, they can contact me
Okay.
through my website. And
Okay. That's a great idea. I
Mhm.
would love to do it with my mom. So she's,
Yes, do that.
she's still here and she's turning 70, and
Yeah.
I just as a child too, you start noticing differences in your parents and changes as they get older,
Mm,
and it starts making you
mm,
very aware of the fact that they won't be here forever.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
how do you like make the most of the time that you have with
yeah.
them while you still are raising children and working and,
Mm,
having this very busy life that we have.
mm,
So that's a beautiful way of doing that, of taking,
mm-hmm.
taking the time to really ask those questions that you wish you would have asked
Yeah,
beforehand.
yeah.
How about your own experience of motherhood? How has this changed the way you look at motherhood, the way you parent, what you want your child to remember you for when you're no longer here? How has it changed that?
I don't think it has. I I'm not sure I can talk about change. Um, losing my mom and doing this podcast really made me very aware, as I mentioned, of what I want to pass on and teach him.
Mhm.
For me personally, the biggest gift I think I received from my mom was this passionate love for life. Never taking life for granted, never taking a single day or anything for granted, and always being very, very aware of how fragile it is. My mom lost her parents. She lost her mom when she was 12, and she lost her dad when she was 24, I think, or even younger. Very, very early, and she really was always cherished life and lived with, lived big. And I
Yeah.
really want to, I'm really very consciously passing this on to my son,
Yeah.
and finding joy in this, in little things, and noticing them, noticing that the birds are singing and how
Mhm.
beautiful is that,
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
the way the sun is shining right now, or the fact that, I don't know, it's Saturday and we don't have to get up, just
Right.
these little things in life.
Yeah.
For me, this is the biggest thing that I want to pass on to Kai. But also, I also very consciously decided to continue working, and I really want to model to him what my mom modeled to me. Um, I'm also trying to model a little bit of a different, in spite of my mom having her careers and everything, she would be the one who would cook and, take care of the household and things like that. I'm trying to model a different
Yeah. Yes, yes, I hear that.
partnership.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I don't
Yeah.
know, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that answers my
Okay.
question. Absolutely. And that passion, I think that's such a beautiful gift that your mom gave you, that just passion for life and not taking a single moment for granted. And um, it's a conversation I literally was just having with someone like an hour ago,
Oh,
at my yoga
okay.
studio. Yeah, we were just having
Yeah.
this conversation about how, we can so easily in the kind of monotony of daily life, right? You get up every
Mm,
day, you go to work, you go to school, you
mm,
come home, you cook, you clean, all these different things that we, have
mm,
to do. They're part of our daily lives.
mm.
And they can start to feel monotonous, and then we can start to lose that zest for life, and we can
Yeah,
start to forget how precious it is and how
yeah.
it can be taken from us so,
Mm,
quickly and easily. And
mm,
so I'm just saying, I think that's a really beautiful gift to
yeah,
give your
yeah.
son, is that really that wisdom that, yeah,
Mm,
take every second and value
mm,
it, and there's something beautiful
mm,
in every
mm,
single second. My daughter, again, she was laughing at me because we had come out from a doctor's appointment, and it was just a beautiful day. The weather was
mm-hmm,
perfect. The
mm-hmm.
sun was shining out of the sky. There was flowers planted everywhere, so all these beautiful colors and flowers, and I'm commenting on all these things like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful and the sun is shining and look at these flowers, and I'm like so excited, and she's like, okay, mom, like she's
Yeah,
not
she's
done.
15. She has to. That's
Yes.
her job now.
Yes, exactly. But it's one of those things again that I'm like, well, one day, hopefully, hopefully she'll remember me
Mm,
as someone who
exactly.
remembered to notice and
Yeah,
take such joy in the
yeah,
little things, because
yeah,
they are the big things. The little
yeah,
things actually
yeah,
are the
yeah,
big things.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this is like training a muscle.
Mhm.
You really learn it either from, if you're lucky, from your mom, or you have to train yourself to start noticing the good things, because, oh my God, it's so easy to notice when something goes wrong or disturbing. You know, we really have to train, and we can do this, and suddenly our eyes look different. We have a completely different look at the world, and that's
It is,
important.
yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And
Mm.
it's a much better way of looking at the world, because whether we choose to look at those things or not, they're still there.
Yeah.
And whether we, wherever
Mm,
we choose to place our focus, the other thing is still there.
mm, mm,
So if we want to live a life that's more joyful and
mm,
easeful, then we can choose to train ourselves to
mm.
look at the beautiful parts of life,
Yeah, yeah,
and really
yeah.
acknowledge them and value them and be grateful that they're there. And the other part I wanted to pull out was the self-care piece, and whether that means, going to yoga or taking a walk or going back to work.
Mm,
Because I think a lot of women throughout the years have sacrificed the things that they love in service of motherhood, or they think in service of motherhood. But what a gift to give our kids to see your mom really excited and lit up about whatever she's doing in her life.
yeah,
Yeah.
when I started teaching at the university, Kai was so excited. He was so proud of me. He
Yeah.
went around saying to everybody, "Did you know my mom is a professor?" And then he is just so proud of me. And
Yeah.
then at one point, I skipped one semester, and he got worried. He's like, "Will you go back to the university? What's happening? You know, how beautiful is that?
Yeah.
How fantastic is that?"
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mothers
then
today.
if you're loving it, it's really fueling your energy. And then you
Yeah,
come to him with
yeah,
all of this
yeah,
beautiful
yeah,
energy from having your cup filled. Yeah.
yeah.
It's wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being here, Anna. I really enjoyed this conversation. I look forward to this book whenever you decide to write it.
Oh, thank you. Whenever I collect the courage to write it,
Yes.
I finally admitted to myself that I think what's stopping me is just I think I have so much awe from this material. It's incredible, these stories and lessons. And I think I'm very nervous, and I have to collect the self-courage to
Yes.
allow myself and tell me I'm worthy of, you
Of
know,
writing it.
of writing
But
it.
when you do it, it will be such a service to anyone who reads it. So it
Yes,
will be a
yes. I have to
beautiful
remind, thank you
gift.
for saying that. I have
Yes.
to remind myself of that.
Yes.
It's a service. Yeah.
It is. Keep
Thank you.
reminding yourself of that, and you will get it done, and I will buy it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, have a wonderful rest of your day. I will put
Thank you so much.
your podcast in the show notes, as well as your website, and then people can access you and get those questions for their moms.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Okay. All
Thank you for the
right.
conversation.
Thank you, and have a great day.
You too.